Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Today we are going to go over the Solo Setup utility for the IO image line of encoders. It is a whole new way of defining all markers with a twist. This new utility allows a single person to record a session and play it back at their leisure. This is a true time-saving utility that can help you cut the costs of traditional configuration methods. So stick around for a few minutes at how this is done. Before we get started, we're going to need to make sure that we have a couple of things ready to go. We're going to need to make sure that we have the latest version of firmware for the IO image encoder. The minimum firmware version that's going to need to be on our encoder before we proceed is going to be 2.0.1.243. This firmware can be accessed from our VOR portal at www.tvtel.com or by contacting a representative of our support department. We'll also need the Solo Setup firmware update as well. That can be gathered from the same location. Once we have both firmware updates required, we can go ahead and access our camera via Internet Explorer. Go ahead and type in the IP address in the bar of the camera that you'd like to set up the Solo utility on. Log into the camera. Proceed to the Setup tab on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And before we begin, again, remember, go ahead and check the firmware version. The minimum firmware version is going to need to be 2.0.1.243 before it's updated to the current version with the Solo Setup utility, which will show 2.0.1.283. So you can see that my camera has been updated to the latest and greatest firmware, including the Solo Setup utility. If you are in need of updating the firmware on your camera, it's quite a simple procedure. Go ahead and simply browse next to the upgrade file location, find the firmware that matches your specific unit, highlight, select in the open, and then go ahead and click on the upgrade button until you obtain the current firmware version seen here. Once the firmware has been updated on your camera, we can now go to the Analytics tab on the left-hand side of the screen under Depth, where we now see the Solo Setup utility here. And again, all we need to do is just follow the steps to get this set up. So go ahead and click on the Solo Setup tab here. You'll find a set of instructions that will give you some information on how to set up your camera in the next few steps. To proceed, we'll need to go over to the right-hand side of the screen under the Solo Setup tab. The first thing we're going to want to do is define a location to record our video. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to browse, either choose an existing location or define a brand new one, which we'll do right now on our desktop. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a brand new folder on the desktop. We'll call this Solo Setup. Update the save location there, and we can go ahead and we can start the recording process. Once the camera's recording, now we can go out and move about in front of our camera to get the information that we're looking for. Once you've completed your recording, you can go ahead and hit the stop button. Now that we have our recorded segment, we can go back and continue with the setup. Let's proceed to the Ground and Heights tab in step number 1. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to play back that recorded video that we just shot only moments ago. That can be done by going down to the bottom, browsing to the location that we selected earlier, clicking on the play button. Once the subject has come into focus, we can begin the setup procedure. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to start marking the subject's location. Go ahead and grab one of the markers that are currently available over here and drag it over to the subject. You'll notice that the subject has his back to the camera, which is the most accurate way to set it up, heels to the top of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop my marker here. I'm going to get it relatively close and just check to make sure that I'm lined up right down here at the heels. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust the top of the marker right down to the top of the head. I'll also make a setting change here to the marker height. So I want to be very specific about the height of the individual who's going to be used as the test subject. If the same individual is going to be used as the marker, you can also apply the height to all markers that are going to be used for this exercise. So I can go ahead and click on this little button down here and ensure that every single height marker will be identical. Once I've placed the first marker, I can go ahead and click on the play button until the subject moves into the next location where I'd like to put a marker. Once that individual reaches the location, I can click on the pause button again, grab a brand new marker, and maneuver it over to that subject again. And again, you'll notice the little zoom box in the upper right hand corner of the screen will be most beneficial at getting a very accurate location on where the subject's heels start and head. Once I've finished placing the next marker, I can go ahead and click on the play button once again. Pause it to place another marker on the screen. I'll just grab another marker here. Once again, I want to be very accurate with this, just like that, and then continue on. And let's place this last marker here. If we decided that we needed additional markers, they can always be accessed up here on the left side toolbar by simply clicking on human marker. And again, we can add additional markers if needed, or just simply remove them by clicking on the human marker button again to remove those markers that are not currently being used. Once we've completed all the markers, it's time to go to the verification page. This is the last step to ensure that our markers have been set up correctly. Once this step is complete, we are now ready to move on to additional configurations. For a complete list of videos available on these topics, please visit the DVTEL VAR portal at www.dvtel.com. Once again, thank you for your time, and be on the lookout for new and exciting videos from DVTEL's TCX Training Department.